I'm a former Buddhist monk with a degree in, so we would have these classes with the abbot of the monastery. And I went in to visit him, and we get these lessons, and there'll be a particular rule, and he'd explain it. And then I'd say, so what happens, Renato, trust yourself. So I started trusting myself, and in the end, people didn't like it. Is that what I've really learned is that it wasn't about trusting myself.
Morning, Renato. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well, thank you. It's very nice to see you, Dan.
You too. Now, you've got a fascinating story. Do you want to just take a minute or so to introduce people to who you are and what that story was?
Yeah, certainly, I'll do that. So I'm a former Buddhist monk with a degree in artificial intelligence, and I help senior leaders go on journeys to help them stay calm and connected in complex situations. And I spent 15 years as a Buddhist monk in England, exploring who I am and using all the ancient practices as well as some of the modern stuff around communication and group dynamics and relational approaches to really live a full life. Yeah.
That's great. So, really curious now. What's your best piece of advice given that background?
So my best piece of advice is actually from my time from being a monk. And when I first started off being a monk, you get a sort of training in the rules of the monk. So I had to start off with, I had 8 basic rules, then 10 training rules, and then a lot more rules. And they're always difficult to, understand how to use them in particular contexts. So we would have these classes with the abbot of the monastery. And I went in to visit him, and we get these lessons, and there'll be a particular rule, and he'd explain it. And then I'd say, so what happens in this situation? And he'd say to me, Renato, he'd say, trust yourself. And then I'd go the following week, and I'd ask him, yeah, what about, this rule? We're not supposed to do this. He'd say, trust yourself. And I get confused because the rules were quite fixed. If you broke a rule, it was quite a serious thing. Although, yeah, like living in community, and people knew the rules. And as I went on, in my monastic journey with him, there was other situations. I got more involved. I started running family camps. These were really big events where I learned how to bring my sort of skills, of working with people into these retreats. And I go to him and say, well, this situation happened, what should I do? And he would say, Renato, trust yourself. So I started trusting myself, and in the end, people didn't like it because I really did trust myself. And this long journey that I've taken, from leaving the monastic life to becoming a leadership coach and accredited coaching supervisor now, and also working with Blend Associates as head of faculty and leadership, is that what I've really learned is that it wasn't about trusting myself. It was actually about trusting life. And the funny thing about that is that this is what leaders really want. All these skills that I see, dealing with complexity, relational awareness, not knowing, being playful. These are all the skills that I learned as a monk. And it's this ability to really pause, this moment, just pause, just stop. And see and sense make. And the sense making is to find meaning and purpose in one's life. How do we do that? And that's really trusting in life. Yes, I've had terrible things happen to me, and I'm sure maybe people listening have had terrible things happening to them, or they've seen things in the world. But there's a deeper trust. If you go below that and really rest in what I would say in this moment, in the present moment, in how it is right now, you find that there's a stillness and peace. And that's what I'm really interested in, and that's what I help leaders and people that are really interested in taking a deep dive into who they really are. And it's actually very simple, but our minds, our egos, make it more complicated. Same with me. My journey as a monk. When I started off, I had all these rules, and how do I do this, and how do I do that, and I shouldn't break them. But what I learned is like this ability to be flexible and adaptable. I never broke a rule, as a monk, but I was certainly flexible and adaptive. Very flexible and very adaptive with some of the rules, because this is how one grows. The rules are not there to make life difficult. The rules were there to enable you to recognize peace. Now I don't follow a lot of those rules. I do keep an ethical way of living. I think that's very important in the way that we live in the world now. But it's still trusting life, and this makes life incredibly rich and purposeful and meaningful. And it's this ability to self-reflect, to be aware, and really know who you are.
Fantastic. Really, really interesting. And what a great way to start the day. If people wanted to get in contact with you, how would they go about doing that?
They can find me in LinkedIn under Amranato, or they can find me via my website, playfulmonk.net. Play being the best way we learn, and the monk being the mindset which we've just been speaking about. Yeah, thank you, Dan.
Great. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks a lot.